Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I am doing a mid-season review of Tell Me Lies. I have finally caught up on season 2, so just a quick disclaimer, I'm about to go on a week away, so this video is under a fair amount of time pressure, so there isn't too much footage I will be using, but I will be adding clips of what I'm talking about in specific moments. Let me know if this more laid-back, casual format works for you or whether it's an absolute nightmare to watch. Without further ado, we are going to go episode by episode. I'm just going to cover the most interesting moments, character beats, and little scenes that jumped out to me in this second season of Tell Me Lies so far. So episode 1, we are back into it. We are jumping around in time. We are jumping forwards. We are jumping backwards. The first thing that really jumped out to me was Lydia, who is Steven's future fiance and Lucy's ex-best friend in the forward time jump, but not in the present, if that makes any sense. The first thing that jumps out to me is the beef, the rift that is explored between Lydia and Lucy in the kind of present day version of events in Tell Me Lies. Now, obviously in the past / main timeline we are following, Lydia is Lucy's like hometown best friend, but we find out she is actually engaged to Steven in the future. But the interesting thing is obviously that setup makes us feel like Lydia must be in the wrong, but Lydia actually says to Lucy, "I'm never going to forgive you." And it opens this really burning question for the audience. What happened between Lydia and Lucy to get to this point? Did Lucy do something to Steven? Has Steven said something that has caused the rift between them? Super interesting, and I can't wait to find out. Next, we cut back to the usual timeline of the show, and there is a scene between Steven, Diana, and Diana's dad. And I found this scene really interesting just because you can see a lot of Diana, what we know of Diana, in Diana's father. He is a lot more cold and direct, but there is a sense of elegance and maturity in the way he speaks and a directness that he speaks to Steven with that reminds me very much of Diana. And I really like that, like, straight into this season, characters are already calling out Steven. The dad is calling out Steven for being manipulative and basically saying, hey, it's going to be effective in some use cases, but that can't be your defining character trait. And as fans of Tell Me Lies know, Steven's main defining character trait is that he's a manipulative piece of shit, right? So like, we're sitting there going, yeah, little do you know, mate. Next, at the end of last season, obviously a big moment in the finale was Lucy sleeping with Evan. Now Evan is avoiding Lucy. And you know what? Call me shady, call me bad morals, but I think these characters need to take that to the grave. This is so messy. This is so fucked up. And the whole season I've been sitting there like, oh my God. And I really was sitting there like, you guys need to make a pact to just absolutely bury this. This is insane. I also like this scene in episode 1 when Steven first sees Lucy again, and you can tell he is just so perturbed and pissed off that Lucy isn't giving him any energy. He no longer has the grip he used to have on Lucy, or so it seems initially. But she's trying to be strong. She's trying to be stoic, and you can see that it's really actually pissing off Steven. He can't get over it. Just circling back to Lucy pretending to be over Steven, I love this repeated motif in the first couple episodes where Lucy keeps repeating this mantra of Diana did me a favor, Diana did me a favor, and characters actually call her out and say, hey, you're saying that a lot. Like, they're kind of acknowledging that she is just repeating this to herself until she believes it. Next, Evan tells Steven of all people, about his affair. Now, important to note, he does not tell Steven who it is with, but it's like, out of all people to tell, why are you telling Steven? You've literally been warning Lucy how toxic Steven is this whole time. You've been the only person that's consistently been smart and like morally consistent, and now you are telling Steven, which also is just opening up Steven to start snaking around and investigating. And like, if he starts doing that, he's going to find out that not only did you cheat on Brie, but you cheated on Brie with Lucy, his ex. And Steven has already been losing his mind about the fact that Wrigley slept with Diana. So it's like, Evan's just opening up himself to be manipulated and like just fucked over by Steven. And I'm like, out of all people to tell. Now, the only defense you can possibly offer here in terms of like the character motivation is the fact that Evan currently feels like a shitty person for what he did to Brie, for cheating on Brie. And therefore he is opening up to someone he sees as a bigger piece of shit, so he doesn't have to be actually held accountable for his actions. If he opens up to Steven, right? Steven is in no position to judge Evan. In fact, they now have something in common. So that's the only reason it really makes sense he would open up to Steven, is because it's probably out of people he could open up to, someone who's going to go relatively easier on him and actually understand where he's coming from, because they understand what it's like to cheat and be in an affair. But my God, why would you tell Steven? Like, out of all people, like, he's such a fucking menace. Next, Diana and Lucy reunite. It's probably awkward. I love it. It's really good. Like, I really like this Diana and Lucy, like, really uncomfortable dynamic that's being explored, especially after what happened at the end of season 1. Next, they meet this new guy, the new heartthrob for the season. Now, I am going to rant about this new guy because I am so disappointed with the Reddit. Did we not learn anything from season 1, how toxic and shitty some of these guys can be? And you're simping over some guy that literally has anger issues and has explicitly said out loud, like, oh, I have anger issues, like, don't test me. Like, absolute walking red flag. We know this is going to go wrong. Yes, he's cute and he's cuter than Steven, but like, for fuck's sake. So anyways, they're talking to this cute new guy, right? Leo or Thomas, whatever his name is. I'll put it up on screen. And then Steven snakes his way over because he sees Lucy connecting with this guy. And my God, I was cringing so hard in this scene, just like unbelievably cringe. Next, it would not be Tell Me Lies with some absolutely unhinged Steven moments and unhinged Steven dialogue. And this was one of my favorites when he says to Lucy in front of other people, I probably eroded any sense of dignity you had. My bad. Just an absolute menace. The fact that he is still breathing is insane.
Sure, that made you feel terrible about yourself. I probably eroded any sense of dignity you had. That's my fault.
Next, Lucy threatens Steven after this scene. She smashes his phone and threatens to tell everyone about Macy. Absolutely awesome scene. I love that she still has that fight in her. It also suggests that she still really is hung up on Steven and his antics, but an incredible moment. And I love the crazy closing montage. Awesome episode 1. Next, we have episode 2. I absolutely love this earring fight between Evan and Bree. This is so well done. Obviously, Evan is buying this lavish gift for Bree out of cheating guilt. And I like that this scene can be read a few different ways. And it's really like subtle dialogue and subtle writing. But basically, the issue you can tell here isn't that she doesn't like the earrings, even though secretly she does not like the earrings. The main issue here is the fact that he's given her this really lavish, expensive gift in front of other people and she feels embarrassed. And when she tries to explain that to him because he's asking why she seems a bit off, he hears it as, oh, you don't like the earrings. And again, I love the writing moment where she's explaining to the teacher she ends up having an affair with, where she's saying, well, actually, no, I did not like the earrings, but that wasn't what I was saying to him. I was happy to lie about that. I was just really upset that he did it in front of people, and I was upset that he was listening without hearing me. Really good writing, really good moment. I fucking hate the affair subplot that's going on with Bree and the sexy teacher. Like, yes, it's juicy. Yes, it's horny, but like, I'm just sitting there. We know this is going to go so badly. He literally says out loud, like, don't get emotionally connected. And like 20 minutes later, there's already these intense emotional ties. Like, I think it's impossible to actually have affairs without emotions getting involved. That's just my personal opinion, but like, Jesus Christ, you are watching a car crash in slow motion unfold in front of you. Next, we have a scene where Steven tells Evan to tell Bree, and I want everyone's opinion on this because I don't think it's Steven being good, all right? I do not trust Steven as far as I can throw him. So even though I want to sit there and go, oh, he's actually like giving good advice. He's talking about alleviating guilt, and also that's the right thing to do with Bree and the fact that if they get married, they don't want to have this secret in the background, but it's like, it's Steven. Like, is he just doing this so the relationship blows up and he has his friend all to himself, so it means there are less ties to Lucy? Like, what is his angle here? And that is what the show teaches you, similar to what Lucy has been through. Every time Steven's on screen, you are constantly wondering, what's his angle? What's his game? What's his true intention here? Because anything good he does, you just can't buy it. It just doesn't feel right. Next, we have a scene where Diana walks in on Wrigley shirtless and says, hey, like, I better get out of here. I don't want Steven coming in. And you realize with Diana in real time that Wrigley does not remember blowing her back out. He does not remember having sex with her. It's an absolutely incredible comic moment. I think Wrigley is one of the few characters in the show. Yes, he has flaws, but I think he's one of the more pure characters in this show, along with Pippa. And their relationship and the breakdown of their relationship has this real sense of tragedy. It feels like they are victims of the like toxic ooze that leaks out of the relationship between Lucy and Steven. They feel like they are catching stray bullets from that relationship. And I think what they do with Wrigley is this really interesting fine line. He is the stereotypical frat jock type, but there is a sense of sweetness and almost sadness to him, especially given to what happens with his brother between now and the flash forwards we get. Next, Evan tells Bree he cheated. This was just a rough watch. This was a rough watch. Next, I really love this moment where Wrigley basically has this offhand comment thrown to Steven about like, I'm surprised you let Lucy smash your phone. I'm surprised you let her get away with that. Like there was no argument afterwards. And it's really interesting because Steven was willing to let it slide as almost like I probably deserve that. And then that comment from Wrigley, it's almost like this thing of like, do my boys not respect me? I better actually follow this up and get her back. It's really fascinating. It says a lot about Steven, but also a lot about Wrigley and whether he intentionally or unintentionally enables Steven's behavior. Next, we have the incredible like roofie scene or drunk blackout assault scene with Pippa. Diana walks in on a really uncomfortable situation going down. And I love how it's presented. You feel like you've walked in on something you shouldn't have seen. I love the way the guy feels skittish and like he's been caught doing something wrong. And the vibe just communicates what is going on really, really well. You don't need to see something heinously graphic or really off-putting. You can just feel the tension in the room. I think it's really well executed. Really good performance from the fucking asshole that's doing that to Pippa. But I think it's a really interesting character moment for Diana and for Pippa. And I think the way Pippa is processing this and going through this is really fascinating and feels very true to life and a mature portrayal of this subject matter. I really do like the conversation that follows about Pippa and the way she's trying to sort of be in denial about what just happened to her or what was attempted to be done to her. And she kind of excuses it and hand waves it away because she doesn't want to see herself as a victim and really actually reckon with what was about to happen or what did happen. Next, I love the ultimate shit test that Bree does where she basically lies to Evan and says that she cheated too just to see what his reaction is. And then when he has an unfair reaction given how she reacted, she dumps him. Hilarious. Shit test failed on Evan's part. Like absolutely gold. Like absolute gold. Like absolute gold. And then you have the fucking cliffhanger of the episode, which is Steven weaseling his way to become the teacher's assistant for a class that Lucy is in. Absolute menace. And I guess that is his revenge for her smashing the phone.
Teaching this class I'm TAing. Hey, Professor Banks. I was wondering, could I come by your office later to discuss something? I had no idea. Now I think she switched into my section on purpose.
That's genuinely creepy.
Next, we have episode 3. We start this in a flash forward moment. There is a reunion party where Steven, Lucy, and her partner Max are there, and Max is actually getting along with Steven. And I really find this scene interesting because it's one of the few times Steven actually comes off okay, but I just can't trust him. I just can't trust him. And given what he put Lucy through, given what he put everyone through, given what he did to Macy, you really can't forgive him. But it's really interesting in this scene because you do understand why Max would have a somewhat okay impression of him given how Steven is carrying himself. But it's like, I just think there are some things you can't ever get over. And I think some people can't be redeemed and don't deserve redemption. And Steven is definitely one of those people. Next, Steven is lying to Diana about being randomly assigned as the TA and actually implies that Lucy is the one stalking him. And I just love that Diana is like putty in Steven's hand. She's so gullible and she obviously has a sneaking suspicion that something is wrong, but she really does enable some of Steven's worst behavior, especially in this season. Next, I love Steven's reaction to Bree dumping Evan. I love that he sees it as this absolute betrayal. There is great comic timing between Evan, Steven, and Wrigley. I absolutely love Wrigley's pound pussy joke and just the way Wrigley tries to like get on board with being a bit of a misogynist and dragging Bree, but it just doesn't quite click for his brain. He doesn't quite get what they're meant to be mad at because for him, he actually thinks Evan's the one that's fucked up and Bree is totally fine. Really good writing and shows Wrigley's sweet nature and how he's trying to kind of still be himself, but also like be what these boys want him to be. Really well done. Next, we have another golden Steven line. This is when Diana is opening up to Steven about her toxic mother, and Steven says, "You're nothing like your pathetic mother."
It just feels pathetic.
She is. And you're nothing like her. It's one of the many reasons I love you.
It's why I love you. I really like this quote because it's just absolutely unhinged. Also, the way it's worded sounds like he had prior knowledge of what Diana's mother was like a prerequisite for dating Diana was like, oh, she can't be like her toxic mother if she happens to have one. It's just such a strange, weird, insulting, toxic quote. And you even see Diana take some pause and be like, Jesus fucking Christ, like it's still my mom. Next, Wrigley apologizes to Pippa. So there is this situation where the footy boys are being really awful to Pippa, and Wrigley has been letting it happen because he's still upset about the letter and he, peer pressure, right? And I actually really like this scene where Wrigley sits with himself and decides to apologize to Pippa. It takes a real man to do that. I think it's really like a sweet, touching moment, and I like Pippa's response to this. Just a really earnest scene. And again, there is so much tragedy baked into this relationship, given the fact that they have basically, been catching strays from Stephen and Lucy's relationship. Excellent, excellent scene. Next, Stephen confronts Diana about Lucy. So this situation, if you remember, is Diana and Lucy helped Pippa get out of that blackout drunk advantageous situation. And I believe Diana borrowed Lucy's key card, and now Diana still has Lucy's key card, and Stephen comes across it and he just has no chill. Like, he's just losing his shit. He's like, what do you guys talk about? Why are you hanging out? Why the fuck didn't you tell me? Yada, yada, yada. He then insists on giving the key card back to Lucy, and we get our most unbelievable moment of the entire season coming up. Brace yourself. So Stephen goes back to Lucy's room, starts laying out the moves on her, starts touching her intimately and seductively, and starts putting his hands down there, right? And then she starts reacting to it. And the moment she starts kind of moaning and reacting to his touches, he goes, wow, this is really fucking embarrassing for you.
This is really fucking embarrassing for you.
Just an absolute menace. Like, obviously it's embarrassing, right? Because she is still hung up on Stephen. But I mean, just to say that about yourself, because that insult at Lucy is also an insult to Stephen. He is literally saying, you are so embarrassing for still liking me. It is an insane moment. A fucking insane moment. And I love it. This is what Tell Me Lies is made for. Just watching Stephen be literally the worst person in human history to everyone around him. And it is a sight to behold. He is a bad person, but he's an incredible character, incredibly captivating, and a fantastic performance. But my God, like, what a line. So next, Lucy goes back for revenge. So she smashed the phone. Stephen then did the whole embarrassing, like, come on scene. And now Lucy runs over to Diana and basically tells Diana, yo, Stephen was in the car when Macy died and he's been lying about it. And Diana thinks Lucy is lying. Diana comes back and goes, wow, you really are as crazy as Stephen said. This is fucking insane. This is like the best show on television. This is the most toxic, juicy, gossipy show I think I've ever seen. I absolutely love it. So next we have this scene where this new heartthrobby guy like headbutts some guy in the face and then says to Lucy, I snap and forget sometimes, and then someone's on the floor with a broken nose. Stay away from this fucking guy. I do not know why Reddit and Instagram and TikTok are all obsessed with this new guy. I get he's cute, but the writing is on the wall here. She is falling back for another potentially toxic guy. Like, I'm sorry, I would get out of there. I would fucking run for the hills. Sorry. All right, but that is nothing. That is nothing compared to episode 4. So I really had the ick for this new love interest guy, right? But then he kind of redeems himself and Lucy incriminates herself in the opening of episode 4. So Lucy, the absolute psycho, pulls this pill trick again. So if you remember in season 1, she offered to go on the pill for Stephen as this sort of shit test to see if he's exclusive, bring up the fact that he still has condoms, and basically imply like, hey, if you're still seeing other girls, I won't, but if you aren't seeing other girls, I'll go on the pill. I just need to know whether you have chlamydia or not. And the whole thing was this elaborate way for her to figure out whether he is or isn't sleeping with other people. And the fucked up thing is, obviously, as a side effect of this toxic relationship and this toxic line of thinking, she now has a really fractured, toxic relationship with contraception methods in general, and the shit she pulls on this new heartthrob guy is fucking insane. So basically, they're about to finally have sex, right? And then he goes over like a sensible fucking person and goes and gets condoms, and she starts lashing out and goes, I'm on the pill. Why are you getting condoms? The only reason, the only possible reason you would be getting condoms is because you're sleeping with other people. First off, this is just so Just such a poor, toxic line of thinking, and also just insanely inaccurate. The almost definite number one reason he's grabby it is because neither of you have been tested recently. He doesn't know your sexual history. That's just the mature thing to do, even if you're on the pill. And it's just this insane, like, can you imagine if the genders were reversed and she was like, hey, can you go get a condom? And he went, really? You're on the fucking pill. What the fuck? So she picks this fight because she's clearly used to using contraception methods as this weird way of figuring out, like, whether they're exclusive or not. And he's just seen there going, what 4D chess is this? But also, I think it's really telling about Lucy's character because in season 1, right, she was using the threat of chlamydia as the main reason for Steven to disclose whether he is or isn't using condoms and whether they should or shouldn't use the pill, right? She said, oh, I want to go on the pill, but I also want to know I'm not going to get chlamydia. And then when this guy in season 2 goes to use condoms, right, she gets annoyed and can't even think for 2 seconds like, oh, maybe it's an STI thing, which suggests that in season 1, really, she was never that concerned about STIs back then either. It's just really telling about her character. Really, really toxic. That gets more insane though because the heartthrob starts trying to talk to Lucy about what contraception they should use and why. And she goes, we don't have to have that talk. Let's just have sex. It's like, are you serious? Like, this is exactly the time you should be having that talk. Then she goes, hey, how about we have angry sex? Are you angry at me? And he goes, hey, like, I've been waiting this long. The first time we have sex, I do not want to be having angry sex. She then goes to storm off and leave. And he says, I don't want you to leave. I just don't want to stay in that argument, but I want you to stay. He comes off absolutely incredible in this scene, in this sequence. Like, I was really worried about him, but in this section, he comes off really well. And you can tell he's trying to control his anger and not get worked up. And I really like that he actually says to Lucy, hey, I can't do all this up and down stuff. Like, I can't be drawn into it. And it really does make me wonder if this season is going to explore the idea that some people have some darkness in them and sometimes it gets drawn out by different people. Like, I really do wonder if because of what Steven's done to Lucy, she is going to inadvertently draw out the worst of this guy and it's going to lead to really drastic, dire consequences. Can you imagine if the end of the season is this new heartthrob guy gets physical with Lucy and Steven has to take him out? Can you imagine how insane that'd be and what it says about the men in her life and her relationship with them? It would be absolutely insane, but who knows where this season of TV is going. Oh my god, I forgot to mention another absolutely unhinged moment that Lucy does. This is like Steven level of gaslighting and manipulation, by the way. Can I just say, like, this is the closest she has been to Steven. I think it's a really good demonstration of the way that if you are in these toxic relationships, you start mirroring that behavior. But Lucy literally says to him, oh, you're just like other guys. You have a bunch of condoms. This is such an insane characterization. First off, she's villainizing him for having condoms and basically saying, oh, you're like every other fuckboy. It's like, sorry, he wants to be safe. Like, maybe he's had that packet for like 6 months. Who knows? But like, just an absolutely insane thing to say. Like, are we really out here shaming him for that? Nuts. This is clearly a Steven side effect, right? But insane. So yeah, round 1, the first couple fight goes to Leo in this section. He absolutely crushes this, really holds himself well, really mature, really proud of him, to be honest. Next in my notes, I have Wrigley frowny face. I think there is just this scene that made me want to cry when Wrigley is basically trying to reconnect with Pippa and he's saying like, I really want to trust you. I hate being mad at you, but like, I need an explanation for this letter. Like, I hate being mad at you and I'm so sad that we broke up, but I really need to like be able to get past this in my head. Like, I need an explanation. It's so tragic and sad and well written. And again, like, really incorporates the fact that, yeah, they've just been torn apart by Steve and Lucy and neither one of them really know it. Super interesting, super well written. Next, we have Bree and the teacher affair. So she has been really down bad for this teacher, even though he said to her, like, I just can't be in something like an emotional entanglement. She's now seen there in her spare time stalking this teacher. This is fucking insane behavior. This is, again, like a car crash in slow motion. So hard to watch. Next, Wrigley apologizes to Pippa about the jocks. Oh, and I remembered the scene that really upset me and was really moving with Pippa and Wrigley. And it's when Pippa's dad bumps into Wrigley and she pretends they are still together. I think I find this interesting because it works 2 ways. First off, she is hoping that her dad thinks she is still with Wrigley because then the dad will be comfortable with her and her safety on college campus. But also, I think this is a storyline that is feeding into the fact that Pippa is coming to terms with her sexuality and she she might be using Wrigley as almost like a beard, right? Like someone to keep up a straight appearance while she's having these questions about her sexuality. I don't know if it's definitely suggesting that, but I feel like that's the direction it could go in as well. But yeah, just really tragic and beautiful scene that Wrigley is willing to do that for her without question and doesn't even hold it against her. It's almost like this moment of like, oh yeah, I really let you down with the jocks. I'll do this. No questions asked. It's a wonderfully beautiful moment in an otherwise toxic, juicy, and just painful show at times. Bree tells Lucy of all people about Oliver. Why the fuck are you telling Lucy? This is like when Evan told Steven about his cheating, right? Like why is Bree telling Lucy specifically, who is working with the wife of the teacher, about her affair with the teacher? Just an insane choice. This is obviously going to come to a head at some point, and I'm really curious as to how it's going to come to a head. Next, Steven has a panic attack after this important test, after this important LSAT exam, and it turns out he has a broken rib, which is almost definitely from the steering wheel. The doctor actually outlines like, hey, this is probably from a car accident. And then this kind of gets the attention of Diana, who's already worried and suspicious about his involvement in the car crash with Macy. Really interesting. Next, and finally, Diana snoops on Steven's laptop and deletes the photos of Macy. I do wonder if Steven is going to notice that these photos are gone and then confront Diana and start getting really anxious about who's seen it and who's been on his computer, or if he's even just not going to notice at all because he doesn't spend that time looking through old memories. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Don't mind the background. I am currently on holidays, but today we are talking about season 2, episode 5 of Tell Me Lies. And so far I thought this was the best episode of potentially the whole show. I was absolutely hooked this episode. I felt like the 50 minutes went by in what felt like 15 minutes. The pacing was excellent. I thought all the scenes propelled these characters forward in really interesting ways. We're getting a lot of backstory and the world is starting to feel a lot more expansive. In season 1, the show very much felt like it was just the story of Steven and Lucy with some minor characters. But at this point, it feels like every single character is pulling their weight, and this show is really interested in this friendship group as a whole. I was basically hooked in every single second of this episode. Now, important to note, I still will be doing a video covering the first 4 episodes of this season. That'll be coming soon, but because this episode just dropped, I'm dying to talk about it. Now, first off, the episode opens with Lucy finding out that her GPA has dropped to about a 3, and this is because she dropped the unit that Steven was a TA for, and that impacted her score. And the reason I find this scene interesting is because the teacher, Marianne, offers to help her out of this predicament, and I think that's going to make Lucy feel a lot more guilty about keeping Bree's secret about the fact that Bree is sleeping with Marianne's husband, and I think it means it's probably going to compel Lucy to speak up to Marianne. I think that's the most interesting sort of like nugget here that you're meant to take away from this interaction. Next, we have Steven and Diana finding out their LSAT scores, and I find this really interesting because for a split second, for a slither of a moment, we see Steven being an almost good partner to Diana. He seems genuinely excited to be getting their LSAT scores, and you quickly realize that this is yet again Steven being shitty. But really, you just find out that Steven is only actually excited because he's expecting Diana to come with him, and when he finds out Diana didn't do that well in the LSAT, he seems genuinely upset with her for doing badly, but not because he's disappointed for her, rather disappointed with her is the vibe he gives off. He seems genuinely annoyed that she didn't do well because it gets in the way of his plans rather than their plans, or more importantly, her plans. Next, I will be covering this relationship more in my season discussion about episodes 1 to 4, but I am really struggling with this relationship between Oliver and Bree, not because I think it's a bad plotline, it is just a painful to watch plotline. This is like a car crash in slow motion, and watching Oliver talk about his wife Marianne to Bree made me want to barf. This was just painful, just a totally uncomfortable watch, like my lord. This scene peaks with cringe and squirm factor when Bree accidentally lets slip to Oliver that she told Lucy about their getaway weekend. This is rough. This is a rough moment that really makes her feel a lot younger than Oliver, and Oliver is clearly pissed. He tries to pretend he isn't, but this is just rough. Then we have this scene between Oliver, Bree, and the barmaid. Initially, I thought the barmaid was just being a bit icy towards the two of them because she could tell that Oliver was having an affair, but the way the interaction went, especially given the ID comment, made it seem like that what the show was suggesting was that the barmaid thought that Bree was Oliver's daughter, or at least young enough to be his daughter, and then Oliver kisses Bree in front of the barmaid as basically a fuck you. This is a really awkward moment. It makes it feel like Bree is just this toy for Oliver to use at times. And you can tell Bree is clearly a bit disturbed by this interaction. It's really sleazy. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but Oliver starts to feel really sinister this episode. There are a few throwaway comments and a few things he does with his demeanor and how cold and icy and calculated he starts to feel that it almost feels like Bree might be getting into something that is genuinely dangerous and toxic rather than just problematic and emotionally tumultuous in regards to it being an affair. It genuinely is starting to feel like there is something darker to Oliver here, and I'm kind of waiting for the shoe to drop, particularly pertaining to his first wife. Obviously, he is sad that his first wife passed away, but the way he kind of talks about it and skirts around it and shuts the conversation completely feels like maybe something darker went down with his first wife.
He didn't just like kiss Bree in front of the barmaid. He
made eye contact,
active eye contact like the entire time.
Yeah.
Like pre, during, and post.
That was so fucking rough. All right, so next, Lydia meets Steven. This is an insane moment, and I just have to comment how good I think the writing is this season. At the end of season 1, when Lydia shows up as Steven's like fiance, initially there's this moment where you're like, wait, who? Lydia? Who? What? And it almost felt like sloppy writing, given it didn't have this massive impact because we didn't have too much time with Lydia. But now this season is giving us so much time with Lydia. We are seeing this relationship form in front of our eyes. It's super captivating, super interesting. One of my favorite things about this season is there are a bunch of pairings that you know aren't going to work, like Wrigley and Pippa. And there are a bunch of new pairings that you know are eventually going to happen but haven't happened yet, such as Pippa and Diana. And you're kind of waiting for these seeds to be planted. It makes the show really compelling and interesting. And one of these is Lydia and Steven, because when Lydia first meets Steven, she tears him a new arsehole, specifically the line where she says that she expected Steven to be better looking given what Lucy put up with from him. Just an absolutely insane comment to watch come out of someone's mouth. I loved it. But again, this is super captivating because it's like they're starting at this point, but somehow Steven is going to be able to isolate her from Lucy and then propose to her successfully. So I'm really interested to see how that goes down. All right, so next we have the moment with Steven's sister and Lucy. And look, I know Steven does not deserve the good grace of anyone, but I think Lucy was way out of pocket here. And the issue is, I get why Lucy is bothered. I get why she's passionate. And I get why she wants to warn Steven's sister about Steven's true nature, but I just felt like the way she kind of made it almost feel like Steven's sister was inherently in the wrong for even wanting to see the best in her brother was just insane. And I feel like Diana calling Lucy out in this moment was entirely justified and warranted. Next, the teacher, Oliver, manages to outdo himself, out-cringe himself in this interaction about Bree and whether she is shaved or not. It is an absolutely unhinged, insane, uncomfortable moment. So basically the setup here, right, is that Bree outlines to Oliver like, oh my God, like I'm actually really embarrassed. You walk around naked so comfortably and I can't do that at the moment because I didn't shave. I didn't get myself ready for this week away. And he proceeds to go like, oh, don't even worry about all that grooming. And initially it feels like a really good sort of forward thinking progressive moment from Oliver. You think he's just going to be really chill about body hair and like natural features, but then he proceeds to add, plus if you shave too much it starts to feel a bit prepubescent. This is one of the most uncomfortable moments I've seen in modern television in like a while. And then he proceeds to double down on it where she goes, oh, are there any other things I should know that you do or don't like? And he goes, nah, it was really just the body hair, you know, just a thought. And it's like, it's clearly not fucking just a thought, because the way he said that was entirely with his chest, as if when she shaved in the past, that is what has gone through his head. It's absolutely insane. It's so bad.
Because then he like proceeds to, and then he's like, oh, you won't care about body hair at my age.
Oh my God, that was so bad.
Yes, and then
But then she said something weird. So just when you thought Oliver's like pre-game dirty talk couldn't get any worse than the pre-pubescent comment, they then have this discussion where he basically says like, oh, once you're my age, you'll get how I feel. Bree then proceeds to come out with an incredibly morbid comment where she says, I won't know you by the time that I'm your age, basically implying that he'll be dead by then. He then like stims out because it's such a confronting, morbid thought. And his response to this is to just take off his wedding ring and put it on her her finger. The whole pillow talk conversation was just entirely self-sabotage for both of them. It was so hard to watch. The plot gets really juicy now though, because Lydia finds out that her brother is dealing with a bunch of SA accusations, which obviously Pippa has also been assaulted by Lydia's brother and is in the room when Lydia is finding this out. And Lucy actually does the right thing here and starts sticking up for the alleged victims because of what Pippa has been through and pushes back against Lydia. And you see a rift between Lydia and Lucy start to form. Despite Lucy being really disappointing in this season so far morally, this was a really good moment from her, and I'm glad she put her foot down. It was also really tragic to watch Pippa have to leave the room here. Next, we have a really, really sweet scene between Pippa and Wrigley. They have been the heart of this season so far. Again, in my episodes 1 to 4 video that will be coming out in the next couple of days, I really touch on this, but I think their dynamic this season is really warm. It's one of the few genuine, earnest things in this season. So far, it feels like they are the heart of this show, and their current status is just a tragic side effect of the toxicity of Stephen and Lucy. It feels like they've been catching stray bullets from the relationship of Stephen and Lucy. But I think this scene where Wrigley is there for Pippa and they have this really honest conversation about where they went wrong, where they went right, it's really, really sweet. And I absolutely love when Wrigley gets back to Stephen and reveals to Stephen that he spent the night with Pippa, but they didn't sleep together. And Stephen starts having an issue with this, and Wrigley proceeds to say, "Why do you care if I don't?" The delivery here is hilarious. It was a really great Wrigley moment. So next we have more peak evil Stephen. This is Stephen operating at full capacity. So basically Stephen's sister gets back and tells Stephen about everything Lucy said to her. So then Stephen flies off the handle and is calling Lucy, and she doesn't pick up, and he proceeds to leave just an insane voicemail. And I really like how the show executed this, because you don't hear the voicemail initially, and when you hear it, holy shit. So Lucy sends the voicemail to Stephen's sister, and we hear it in real time with Stephen's sister, and it is absolutely diabolical. If you've seen the episode, you know how bad it is. But what I really like here is watching Stephen go into full fight or flight mode and watching him gaslight and panic and manipulate in real time. This is a captivating scene, watching Stephen's reaction to his sister finding out who he really is. This is like peak Tell Me Lies. This was just like an excellent scene. Really well done. Incredible performance from the guy that plays Stephen, I must say. Like the look of panic and kind of controlled chaos in his face as he's realizing that the person he really cares about is realizing who he really is. It's so fascinating. It's really interesting to see how he operates with women that he isn't trying to get sexual gratification from, and how he kind of navigates that, because it's a completely different way to someone like Lucy or Diana or even Lydia. Speaking of Lydia, the scene between Stephen and Lydia is also just absolutely insane. Love it. This is such a good demonstration of how these toxic sort of people try and isolate their victims from everyone else around them. And Stephen quoting everything Lucy said about Lydia to Lydia is really, really hard to watch, and a really effective scene. But I also like this because at the end of the day, Lydia has a point where she says, well, Lucy, these things were incredibly specific. You clearly did say these things. And I like that you can tell that Lydia is still upset with Lucy. Obviously, Stephen is doing the wrong thing here and is being incredibly manipulative, but Lucy did actually say those awful things. And it's one thing I've noticed reading the book for Tell Me Lies, is the book is very much interested in interrogating Lucy as a character as much as it is interested in interrogating Stephen as a character. Particularly in the book, Lucy has some incredibly toxic thoughts about everyone she keeps around her, about friends she's meant to love. And I think in this season, particularly in this episode, it's really exploring that idea. You know, the fact that she keeps Lydia around as her best friend but says all these things about her is incredibly telling about Lucy, but again, very telling about Stephen, that he would use this as ammunition to separate them. If I were to speculate about where I think this rift between Lydia and Stephen and Lucy is coming from, I have to suspect that eventually Lucy is going to go into bat for Pippa against Lydia's brother to help him get locked up, sent to jail, or punished or expelled from the university, and Stephen is going to be in Lydia's ear telling Lydia how it was all Lucy's fault and Lucy was the mastermind of getting Lydia's brother kicked out of the uni or sent to jail or worse. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. That's everything I have to say about Tell Me Lies Season 2, Episode 5. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more Tell Me Lies content. I will be releasing a video in the next couple days covering the first 4 episodes, and then I will be doing weekly videos on the new episodes as they come out. Thank you so much for watching. A fantastic start to the season. Initially, I was a bit lukewarm on it, but as I was reading these notes, I was like, oh my God, what a fantastic season of television. I can't wait because now I am caught up. So I will be doing weekly videos on the new episodes of Tell Me Lies as they come out. Also, I've started listening to the book, so I'll start referencing the book in these videos if you guys would like me to. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more Tell Me Lies content and have a lovely day.